My Game Boy games are some of my favorite games in my collection. This is probably the most nostalgic collection for me. A lot of my games that I had as a kid, though, I do have as loose games, and there are some games that I've picked up over time that are loose that I want to do something about. I also keep some of my games in the shoebox, where, like a lot of N64 and just cartridge-based games that I don't have boxes for, I keep them in the shoebox. But I want to create some kind of solution that I can actually put on a shelf and just kind of protect games a little bit more. So the first option, probably the most popular option, is taking a cassette case. You can just remove the cassette case, and you have this kind of back area that's perfectly open for a lot of small handheld games. Fit like any kind of handheld game in here, obviously, and then theoretically you could close it. Some people don't even like really modify the cases. They can just fit a game in here and close it. Like a Game Boy Advance game probably fits in here pretty easily. However, in the year 2024, when we have 3D printers at our disposal, we can do some cool stuff. So I have my childhood copy of Pokemon Red. I actually do still have my box for Pokemon Red, but I don't like really messing around with the box that much. I usually just keep the cart out, and then it ends up just kind of sitting on the shelf as a loose cart. But I would like to put it in something more than just the Game Boy cart that exists. Going with the cassette case method, here you can create your own custom case art for cassettes. And online, there's a lot of templates for doing this. But going back to the 3D printer thing, so I designed my own inserts using Tinkercad, which is like a free online program that you can use to design 3D models. And then you can transfer those to a 3D printer and then print. Got the dimensions of a case, designed my insert, printed it out. I did go through quite a few test inserts just to work through various issues, but here you can see that it fits my Game Boy game very easily. You can also fit Game Boy Color games in here. Have a separate one for Game Boy Advance. I also created one for UMD games, one for Turbo-Grafx, like cue cards, and I think I did Game Gear as well. But like that's one of the cool things about this option is you can create a whole bunch of different inserts. You can modify these or design them however you want, and then they just fit inside the case. So you can just slide it in and then close it, and then you have like a small Game Boy case. There's actually two things I don't like about this option. The first one being that if you have a manual, there's obviously no place where you can put the manual in a cassette case like this. So this really only works if you just have loose games and you're not interested in having the manuals. A lot of my loose games I do also have manuals for, and so I wanted a different option that I can actually put the manuals in. And then the other thing that is with these cases is they have the spools on them that hold the cassette tapes in place. Here's one that's unmodified. So these little pegs, you have to take these out in order to put anything larger than the Game Boy Advance game in. And so there's no like real easy way of doing that. Every time I've tried removing them, it ends up cracking the case and you just end up with an eyesore. So here, like when you look at the game, you can obviously still see the remnants of those pegs and then cracks in the case. So I just didn't really like this solution. So there's another popular option that makes use of a case that already exists, and that is using a Nintendo Switch case. You can create your own custom artwork for this one. It fits right in the case. No issues. And then the actual kind of custom piece to this is you can 3D print these trays that would go in the manual holder for a Switch case. Since like 99% of Switch games don't even come with a manual, there's no real use in these holes. So you just create an insert that has some kind of peg or post that can fit under the manual holder, and then you can put games in here. There's a couple of problems with this option as well. One, if you have a manual, again, there's nowhere to put it because on the left side, it's just open space and it's really thin. So that's the other issue here is there's just no space inside a Switch case to put anything other than like a cart, which is also going to limit the kinds of carts that you can put in here. You could probably fit a Game Boy Advance cart in here as well. Game Boy Color I find doesn't fit in this case because Game Boy Color carts have like a little hump in them. If you take a look at a Game Boy cart versus a Game Boy Color cart, you can see that hump And when you try to put one inside a switch case, it just doesn't work out. Like you can see it bulging. I guess like if you really wanted to, you can just shove one in there, but you can definitely tell that there's a lot of pressure on this case. So after kind of playing around with those two options, I was kind of like, you know what? Maybe I'll just make my own case. So I started looking at some of the cases that exist. So a lot of them basically use this same design where you just have a plastic case. It's got some kind of plastic sheet in the front that you can slide an insert into. When you open it up, there's a hinge that kind of keeps both halves of the case in place. And then you have a place to put the media and then a holder for a manual. I tried to kind of explore this idea on my own using a 3D printer and just kind of messing around with different prototypes, kind of prototyped my own small little case here. I wanted to just kind of see how you could do something like this with a 3D printer, like specifically how you can build something that would open and close. And I ended up abandoning this idea because while the hinge idea actually worked out better than I thought it would, the kind of printer that I have is a filament printer. And so I think you need another one called a resin printer, which I just don't have the setup or the living space for. One of the things that you'll notice here when you start like activating the hinges on this case, the actual back of it starts breaking apart. Yeah, I didn't do that route. I did try using a different material as well. So this one was made from a different material. This one actually did turn out way better, and you still get that hinging action. The problem with this one is that it's kind of too malleable. Like you can fold it in half and stuff. It just doesn't really keep a form at all. So ideally, I would like to find something in between these two. I started looking at MiniDisc media cases. And so with this one, it's a lot like a jewel case, but I think it fits the kind of Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance type media a little bit better. So you have like a place to put a cartridge. You have these holders in the middle that can hold any kind of artwork or manual or something. And the hinge is different. Like it's basically like a jewel case, a 2-piece case that you can just put together. So here is my MiniDisc case inspired custom game case. You can open it up. You have the game on one side. You have the ability to store your manual on the other side. One of the things that I did change, or there's actually two things. So like on the MiniDisc case, this is obviously like transparent and clear. I don't have the ability to print something that is this transparent and clear. And so the piece that I ended up printing was a solid color, and I just put the plastic kind of insert sheets on the back. The other thing is like in a jewel case or in this MiniDisc case, you have to pull the tray out in order to put the artwork in the back. And in order to remove the tray, you have to pull it out. So this is kind of held in here with a little bit of pressure, and like you could stand to break it by pulling it in and out. So I just created these little trays that you can just lift in and out. So you can put one kind of tray in and put it another kind of tray. It's like I made trays for Game Boy games that are just the cart. I made a tray for Game Boy games that exist inside the plastic Game Boy cases. So those will also fit. And yeah, it ended up working out pretty well. But I also created one for Game Gear games. So I only have one Game Gear game, and it's Chase HQ. So I don't have anything to put this in, so I really wanted a case for it. This one I do think turned out better than the Game Boy one. Here you can see the Game Gear manual and Game Gear game fit in here really nicely. This one I do have, so like you can remove the Game Gear case and you can put one in there that has the plastic case. It's like swapping of these is very easy. And overall, I like this design better than any of the other ones that I came up with or was playing around with, because again, I have more options. I can use artwork, I can put manuals in here, I can put cartridges plus cases in here. It ended up just working for me. Like this is a solution that I found to a problem that I have, and I was able to solve it on my own, which I was super happy about. But what if we could take it a step farther? So I've been playing around with different new technologies on Twitch lately, and one of the streams I was doing was playing around with e-ink displays. And I had this idea, it's like, What if instead of having to do box art where you have this plastic insert, you print it out, you put it in, you swap them out, what if we could just update some e-ink display? And then what if we could put that on this case? I created this other new kind of top. So this one has an e-ink display in here. One of the cool things about e-ink displays is once you update the display, the picture will stay, and so you don't have to apply power to it. And we have color e-ink displays now. So here's the color e-ink display versus like an insert that I printed out. I say they look pretty good, pretty similar to each other. Kind of crafted a custom case that deals with the kind of complexities of adding this display to it. And then there's kind of a top cover that goes on top of this. This is like, I feel, another point of customization though, as I printed out more of these covers in different colors. One of the drawbacks of this method though is that like once you have it in place, it's pretty cool, but because the e-ink display has that development board, it does add some degree of thickness to the case. As far as having something that sits on my shelf and then I can just update the one screen whenever I want, and I don't have to do anything else. Like I just plug in my ribbon cable in the back of this, and then I just update what game I'm displaying on this case. I feel like that's pretty cool. While I have solved the problem that I was trying to solve, I do want to keep pushing the boundaries of this. Anyway, I just wanted to share kind of some of the stuff I've been working on the side of the YouTube channel. And if you're interested, I do stream every now and then on Twitch where I'm playing around with different ideas that I have with games in my game room. And it's always cool to just hang out and talk with people there. If y'all have custom case ideas or custom cases that you've created or anything, feel free to link those or talk about those in the comment section below. We'd love to know how other people are dealing with their game collections. And until next time, deuces.